All right, time for a video. This morning, my wife was reading some article that came in on her news feed, and she was quoting some guy who was saying, who is not a climate change denier, and he was saying, the West Antarctic ice sheet is at risk of melting, and it's going to be, 9 meters of sea level rise, and all true. And at the same time that that's happening, and that the Thwaites Glacier is disintegrating, also true, and that we're having marine heat waves, well, definitely. I talk about that on here frequently. Well, at the same time all that's happening, this is him, right? At the same time all that's happening, the oil companies have extracted more oil than ever before. And therefore, we're assuming they've sold more oil than ever before. And, and I said, stop. Stop right there. Also true. They have extracted more oil than ever before. Humans consume, I don't know what the latest number is. I like the round figure. And the round figure is humans consume 100 million barrels of oil daily. It's probably more like 103. And these days it might even be up to 110. I don't know. I like the round figure. 100. It's still a large number. You probably didn't even know it was that large. You probably thought it was some fraction of that. 100 million. Million with an M. 100 million barrels. Not gallons. Not liters. 100 million barrels. A barrel is 42 gallons. That's the definition of a barrel of oil. Nobody stores oil in barrels. That's like last century. That was 2 centuries ago. They stored oil in barrels. And probably originally it was whale oil. We measure oil in barrels in the same way that we measure how much gas or petrol or diesel you buy at the service station in gallons. You don't store it in gallons. It's measured in gallons. We measure oil in barrels. Same concept. Humans consume 100 million barrels of oil daily. I really can't say that too much. I could sit here and say that for the next 10 minutes and most people won't get it. They just wouldn't get it. They just wouldn't get it. They wouldn't understand it. Is it possible? And what does 100 million even mean to anybody? The Romans had the right of it. Anything over a million is infinity. That's how they handle that, okay? And they were right to do it that way. That was the correct way to do it if you're going to keep things at a human scale. Anything over a million is infinity. How many grains of sand are there on the beach? Oh, I don't know. There's more than a million. So it's infinite, right? How many stars are in the sky? Well, it's infinite. And so, we know what large numbers do to the human brain. And 100 million is 100 infinities. Barrels of oil. Daily. And I want to ask you, how many of those 100 million barrels of oil daily are the oil companies actually consuming? I'm just going to throw it out there. 0. I mean, it's not 0. But in comparison to 100 infinities, the amount of oil that the oil companies themselves consume of their own product is 0. The Saudis, who export a lot of oil, consume a lot of oil. They have a modern economy, more or less. Oh, it's a modern welfare state. Most of the Saudi people don't work. Well, why should they? They're the richest nation on earth per capita. Why should they? Well, they're not required to work. They don't even clean the toilets in the hotels. They bring in Filipinos and Thais and other third world developing nations to clean their toilets. The Saudi people do not clean their toilets. There are no Saudi men with a 5th grade education like we do in this country, also one of the richest nations on earth. There are no Saudi men with a 5th grade education who clean the toilets in Saudi Arabia. Just as there are no American men with a 5th grade education who clean toilets in America. No, that's not how that works when you're a wealthy nation. And they don't burn, they burn oil to get around and to manufacture things and to fly their jets back and forth. But they are actually electrifying their economy. They're going solar because they don't want to burn the oil. They sell the oil. That's where this was headed. They sell the oil. They import their labor. They do all this stuff, and then they sell the oil. They don't want to burn the oil. Don't ever blame the Saudis for creating global heating. Because if you go to them and you say, you dirty oil people, you people who do oil all the time, you created global heating. They're going to say, we have an electrified economy. We don't burn. We sell the oil. We don't burn it. Why would we? Why? It's worth money. Why would we burn it? It's a lot easier and cheaper just to install solar panels and have electric cars and electric luxury cars. Thank you, and just sell it. And then who's burning it? Well, we know who's burning the oil. The same exact thing applies to the oil companies. They don't burn the oil. The amount of oil they burn compared to the amount they sell is zero. It's a rounding error. The amount of oil they burn compared to the amount they sell is zero, essentially. Who's burning the oil? Buy my book. It was 100 days available on Amazon. Yes, it's a .something.com. Link is in the description. You don't have to know where it's found. The link is in the description of the video, and it's about what happens when I'll get to the we in a minute. When we no longer have access to fossil fuels. My second novel takes a similar approach, although the genesis of the problem is different. They overlap. Actually, the first book, It Was 100 Days, could fit inside of the second novel. Could even be vignettes and stories that people have in the second novel. And it's tempting that I might even lift some of the material from the first novel and use it as is in the second novel, because there's overlap. Also, while you're here, if you enjoy this kind of content, I'm not sure what kind of content this is. I'm not sure why you would enjoy it, but if you do, thank you for appreciating my work here. You may want to subscribe to the channel, and you should like the video, because for the YouTube algorithm, this kind of stuff is just poison. What I talk about here is just poison, and they don't like it. And for this kind of story, this kind of narrative, to make it anywhere very far, very wide, it needs a lot of love. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, hype the video. That's a new feature. Some people are using that now. And if you feel like it, share the video, so that more people will have exposure to the material. Not that anybody's going to want to hear this, by the way. I don't see why anybody would, but in case they do, you can share and things will happen. So back to the topic. So the topic of the video today is that we did this. We. I keep talking about we. Who's we? We did this. And I want to make a very special point here. I don't like the oil companies. I'm somewhat indifferent about the oil producing nations. That's people, right? And people, what? They try to survive. They try to take care of their families. The Saudis are taking care of their people using the oil revenues. Their people live good lives. Our people could live good lives too, but our government doesn't want you to live a good life. They want you to work until you die, and you should die at 65 or even 60 if you can manage it. But in Saudi Arabia, they decided that they were going to give money to their people, and they were going to take the money from the oil profits. So to cast shade on the Saudi government for taking care of their people, right? Free everything. And I don't mean, free Xboxes, free medical, free education, free transportation, free everything, right? They're taking care of their people using their oil revenues. It's hard for me to slam the Saudis and the Kuwaitis and the Omanis and all the others for taking care of their people using oil revenues or gas revenues. So I'm not going to do that. I can slam the oil companies, but I'm not going to do it the way people do it. I'm not going to slam the oil companies because they have a product that people want to buy. Why would I do that? That's capitalism. You like your capitalism? I'm sure you do. So why are we going to slam the oil companies for selling a product that people want? And at this point, at this late in the game, it's a product that people need. That people need. And don't want to even think about not having. You see, you're never going to sell that to the people. You're never going to sell to the people the idea that they don't need this, or they can't have this, or they should want something else. You can't sell that to them. You will never convince them that that's true. We need this, and we know that. And it's hard for me to go to the oil companies and say, you're bad. You should stop doing this. And there are people who I consider intelligent, otherwise intelligent, who will say on the one hand, climate change is real and we have a real problem here and this is going to crush us and destroy civilization. And they'll turn right around and say, and we must punish the oil companies for profiting from the sale of oil. We must, remove the subsidies. If you remove the subsidies from the fossil fuel companies, the subsidies that subsidize the expense of finding and extracting crude oil from the ground, okay? If you went to them and said, no, sorry, we're not going to pay for that anymore. We're not going to pay for discovery and exploration. We're not going to pay for drilling. We're not going to pay for refining. No. You pay for that yourself. And they'll say, fine, okay, we'll pay for it. We have to, obviously. Well, in fact, they do pay for it. They just get reimbursed from the government through these oil company subsidies, okay? So they're already paying it. They just won't have any offsetting subsidies to hide the cost. So then what happens to the cost? Again, capitalism, not socialism, not communism, capitalism. And what happens in a capitalist system that you love so much? Well, they pass on the price. Well, that's how that works. They pass on the price of materials, labor, regulatory compliance, interest rates for borrowing money to produce business and products, expenses from travel, everything. They get pass that all on to the consumer. That's capitalism. What do you expect them to do? That's how it works, folks. That's how it actually works. So if the oil companies have this very special price they pay, no one else has to pay this. Someone who's manufacturing feather dusters doesn't have to pay to extract the feathers or anything else, right? These are just materials that are available in the environment. You want to make a feather duster, you just go on Amazon, you order a 50-pound bag of feathers. Now you're making feather dusters. But if you're an oil company, what do you have to do to get your product? Well, you don't order a 42-gallon barrel of oil on Amazon and then resell it on the open market. No, that's not how that works. You have to build an oil rig and you have to float it out to sea with a crew of experienced people and engineers who get 7-figure salaries annually to design the rig and to design the plan to extract the oil. And then you have to drill for the oil, and then there's accidents and there's injuries and all these expenses, and then sometimes you sink the well and there's no oil there. So you have to bring it all out and move the rig, and it costs $1 million a day, and you sink another well and you hope for the best, right? Well, all of that, you just don't order 42 gallons of crude oil on Amazon and have it delivered Amazon Prime, like you could to get feathers to make feather dusters. So they want to pass that cost on, which is a real physical cost, because we're talking about the physical world. A physical thing must happen. They want to pass that on to the consumer. And the government came along sometime, I don't know what, back in the 70s probably, when all this oil hoo-ha started. We started worrying about availability of oil, the cost of oil, and who has the oil. Back in the 70s, maybe you weren't born yet, maybe you were just a tiny child, but I wasn't, and I remember. And it was a big deal. And so they started subsidizing the process of extracting oil, and later natural gas. The government pays for that, because if they didn't pay for it and it got real expensive, which of course it is, It's getting more expensive every year. Then every year, you see how this works? The price would go up. And they don't want that. I mean, the price of everything goes up anyway. But if they allowed the price of oil to actually be reflected of all the expense that goes into acquiring it, because you can't just order it off of Amazon Prime, right? So if they actually allowed the cost of acquiring oil to show up in the price of oil and to show up in the price of gasoline and diesel, then what would be the price of a gallon of gas? $40? $40 a gallon? Maybe. And someone can do the math, all right? I'm sure that someone has done the math. Every time the politicians come along and say, we are going to cut off subsidies to the oil companies, then someone just does the math, hands them the paper, and they're like, oh, so that's what's going to happen. Yep, that's how capitalism works. We have an expense, we pass it on to the consumer. Oh, that's real expensive. That's right. And that's why you're subsidizing the oil companies. So when someone like Peter Carter, Climate Emergency Forum, Peter's a nice guy. He's not a dummy. He's done some work for the IPCC as a reviewer, and so he's plugged in. When Peter Carter goes on his podcast and he says the oil subsidies must stop because the oil companies are contributing to global heating and burning of fossil fuels, and the emission of, he even sounds a little bit like that, the emission of CO2 into the atmosphere, and 100 million barrels a day of crude oil gets burned every single day, 100 million barrels every single day, and 40 gigatons, 41 now, 41 gigatons, 41 billion tons, 41 billion with a B, tons, not pounds, not ounces, tons, 40 billion tons of CO2 equivalent going into the atmosphere every year, enhancing the greenhouse effect and giving us all these massive heat waves and all this massive gargantuan El Nino. And he's right about all that. But then he wants to pull the fossil fuel subsidies because we shouldn't be subsidizing this activity. All he's subsidizing is the extraction. The oil companies are not burning the fossil fuels. I mean, a tiny bit. I mean, yeah, sure, they're a company. They have employees, right? The employees go to and from work. The executives have their private jets, and they fly back and forth from Washington, D.C., and that's, jet fuel and, gasoline and diesel, and, they use something. Or when they're exploring for oil, they're using fossil fuels to do the exploration. Sure, they are. It's a tiny fraction of what they actually produce. And who's consuming all that? Who's consuming all the rest of that? Who's consuming 99.9% of the crude oil and oil resources that they produce? We are. We are doing that. And who's freaking out about the closure of the Straits of Hormuz? It's not the oil companies. They love this kind of thing. They love when the price of a barrel of oil goes up, because they're making more money for free. It's free money for them. They're all of a sudden, the barrel of oil or equivalent, that was sitting in a tanker, anchored offshore somewhere off of Venezuela or the Persian Gulf or the Gulf of Mexico, wherever it is, the North Sea. It's just sitting there at anchor, filling up with oil. All of a sudden, the value of that oil just doubled. It went from $50 a barrel to $100 a barrel, like overnight, because somebody stupid did something retarded in the Middle East again. And now they thought they had a certain amount of value in that oil going into that tanker, in the Middle East. And they're like, okay, we'll be able to sell this. We can sell everything we extract. We sell it all. And then all of a sudden, 24 hours later, that same oil has doubled in price. Why would they not like that? Of course they like that. They're not in the business of making cheap oil for people. They're in the business of making money. They don't care if the Straits of Hormuz are closed. I mean, maybe ultimately they will, but for them, it's all good. Oh, you could even get conspiratorial. Oh, maybe the oil companies conspired to get Donald Trump to kill all those leaders over there and bomb all those bridges and do all this stuff and stir up the Iranians and get them to close the Straits of Hormuz. Maybe that was part of the plan, right? Yes. $100 a barrel now. We went up from $60 to $100 a barrel in 24 hours. Maybe. Maybe they did. Maybe there is a conspiracy. Maybe there's a big conspiracy. But listen, they're selling the oil. They're not burning it. They're selling it. That's why they're happy when the price goes up, because they're selling the oil. And when the price goes up, they make more money. It's not an expense for them. It's income. It's an expense for you because you're buying it. And there is no world line. There's no timeline. There is no conceivable alternative future where you do not. Nobody. Nobody can live without cheap and available crude oil. We have built our current civilization. Let's call it Western civilization. Now people will say Western civilization goes back to the Greeks. Okay. Western industrialized civilization. Let's just go with that. What, 1850? Yeah, probably. You could probably make a case if you're a historian that, yeah, about 1850, probably in Manchester in England, coal burning, steam engines, right? Yeah, probably. Yeah, maybe before that. Metal ships instead of wooden ships, steam trains, iron rails for the trains. That was all industrialization. So that's been going on since 1850. Well, that was coal. Because all they had to do was boil water, because that was the era of steam. And they had been boiling water using wood, and that was fine. I know you can still do that, except, of course, in the process of boiling water to make steam using wood, they cut down all the forests. So that was bad. So it was good that they came up with coal. Now, coal is not as easy to get as wood. Just the same, when it was there and you had to have it, they dug it up. We used coal for a good 100 years. But before we really, we still use coal a lot today, but we don't use it for transportation like we used to. We boil water using coal to generate electricity from the steam. So that's still a big thing. And the coal industries are still quite healthy. But we don't use coal for transportation like steam engines. We use crude oil derivatives. When you refine crude oil, you get diesel. It's one of the first products, and kerosene. One of the second products they got while refining diesel was this thing they called gasoline. They didn't have a use for it, so of course they came up with a use for it. So now gasoline and diesel are of pretty much equal importance. There are other fuels that are used for transportation, like in cargo ships. They call it bunker oil. It's a heavier oil, but these are very primitive ships. They're all two-stroke engines, and they can burn crude oil directly, not even refine it, just burn it directly. And the black smoke comes pouring out the stack and all that kind of thing. So transportation using crude oil and crude oil derivatives. That's civilization today. And without coal and increasingly crude oil to make all that happen, it doesn't happen. Something could happen, but not that. You couldn't even, at this point, I don't think you could even go back to running your industrialized economy on wood. I think the wood is gone. And if you've been paying attention to the news, you'll notice that the wood is increasingly going away. Maybe there was a time 20, 30 years ago when we could have said, let's go back to wood if we can't burn fossil fuels because of global heating. But now, global heating, has come along and set fire to everything. So even the wood isn't available anymore. Now we're really forced to burn fossil fuels until the bitter end. And we will do that. We, you and I, and that guy going by right now in the car, and the next guy who's going to come 2 seconds later, we will all continue to do this. Because without that, you can't have this civilization. I don't mean the Greeks. I don't mean the Romans. I don't mean the Dark Ages. I don't mean the Chinese under the emperors. I don't mean the Siamese civilizations and what do they call them? Cambodians. They didn't call them the Khmer, right? I don't mean those kinds of civilizations, which could run on human labor, animal labor, and wood. You can't have this. And what is this? It's the lights, the electricity, right? The internet, here it is, the internet. The plastic keyboard, the plastic mouse, this microphone, this big LCD screen, right? That even in my lifetime, 20 years ago, this would have been a fantastic luxury item. And, I bought this used for pennies on the dollar. And, everything here, my glasses, all this stuff, this came from Amazon, and probably it came from China. And the shipping containers and the ports, and you couldn't have any of this. You couldn't have manufacturing of anything. You couldn't have AI. You couldn't have robotics. You couldn't have penicillin. None of it. You couldn't have any of it without constant application of cheap and available fossil fuels, in particular crude oil. None of this would happen. This is all for me. This is not for the oil companies. This is for me. This is for you. This is for us. And everything you do, 100% of everything you and I do, 100% of the time, day in and day out, day and night, 100% of everything we do, 100% of the time, is made possible by cheap and available fossil fuels, in particular crude oil. 100%. So when someone is saying, we have global heating, look, everything's burning. You can see it right here. Everything's on fire. And, smoke and homes burned down and more smoke. And then, people getting smoke inhalation and air quality issues. And plus all the destruction of the habitat and all this wood burning and then houses burning and then everything else is burning. And then the heat domes and the omega blockers and the El Nino and everything else. All of this stuff is caused by the oil companies. And we have to make them stop. I mean, people will say things like that. People will say shit like that. And they'll say it with a straight face. And I'm saying, you were sounding kind of smart. You weren't in denial. You were saying all the things that were happening. Everything you said was true. And you were doing pretty good right up until you said, and the oil companies must be stopped. What? You don't want that. He said, and it's always this vague word salad. The oil companies are racking in huge profits. They are. And they're causing global heating. Well, their product is. And we have to make them stop, and they must be penalized, and the executives thrown in prison. I'm like, oh, boy, back the fuck up. Wait, where does all that come from? They're providing you with a product that you can't survive without. Oh, and you can't even survive if the price isn't right. And there's multiple layers of denial here, okay? And you want to punish them? You want to make them stop? And because they won't say what they want to make them stop. And this is where the cognitive dissonance just goes off the rails for me, and I just lose my shit. Make them stop what? Profiting? Oh, we do live in a capitalist civilization. They are motivated by profits to produce these products, deliver them at a fair price, a market price, sell them to you for you to use. That they're providing a service. That's all they're doing. And they're doing it under capitalism. And according to the way we do things, they're allowed to profit. And they're even encouraged to profit. And other people with money invest in them because they're profitable. This is like the virtuous flywheel that carries capitalism forward. And so what do you expect them to stop? Exactly. We must stop the oil companies. Crickets. What do you want them to stop doing? Do you want them to stop selling gasoline? I'm curious. Is that what you want them to do? Oh, no. Silly of me. Of course you don't want them to do that. You don't want them to stop selling gasoline. Okay, what else do you want them? So what should they do? Okay, I'm listening. What do you think they should do? They should stop pumping oil out of the ground? How about refining it? How about delivering the products on a truck to your service station at 3 o'clock in the morning when you can't see what's going on? Because most people, it's magic, right? You go to the service station, you swipe your credit card, you put the fuel in your tank, you never see the fuel, you never see the truck delivering it, you don't know where it is, it's all magic. And so that's why people who are otherwise intelligent can come up with these bizarre scenarios. That we're going to stop the oil companies. We're going to punish the oil company executives. We're going to stop the oil companies. Really? Stop what? Because I assure you. Let me just go out on a limb here. Let me just ease out onto this limb and just say, if they were to ever stop, you would be rioting in the streets. Everybody would be rioting in the streets. And, just to put a point on it, if we ever stopped subsidizing the discovery and exploitation of oil fields, such that the oil companies had to pass the price on to the consumer, which is you and me, not them, you and me, then the resulting price increase, which would be 2 or 3 times, probably, would again have people rioting in the streets, storming the Capitol, demanding change. So what is it that you actually want the oil companies to do? I'm putting it to you. They must stop. We must take away their profits. They can't profit from this. We must stop subsidizing oil companies and the price of whatever. So that's what you're going to do. And no, you're not. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do any of those things. And if someone comes along who's not you and tries to do those things, and you find out quite suddenly that, you mean oil products may not be available in my community or not as readily available, or they might be, heaven forbid, more expensive. Well, then we can't do that. But you said stop the oil companies. Yeah, but you can't do that. But that's what it means. That you don't get gasoline, or you don't get it at the price that you want to pay, whatever it is, or you're willing to pay, whatever it is. You'll get it at the price that actually reflects the expense and the risk of developing these resources for you, the consumer. That's why everybody has to be very vague about this. And that's why these things will never happen. Because the oil companies know. They know. They've played this game before. And it is a game because it's stupid. It's just stupid. It's just stupid people saying stupid shit. And expecting someone to... It's like children. I want another cookie. You can't have a cookie. If you eat another cookie, you won't have any appetite for dinner. Okay. These people want something. They want to feel good about what they did to stop climate change. And so they're running around there saying, we want this, and we want oil companies to stop, and we want we don't want to burn any more fossil fuel. We want to leave fossil fuels in the ground. It's like, all right. So sit down, shut up for a second. Let's have the adult conversation. If we were to do what you wanted, the price of gasoline would triple. Well, it doesn't have to. Well, that's the expense. That's how the spreadsheet works out, okay? We have expenses for discovery, drilling, extraction, transportation, refining, insurance for all this, because it's all really dangerous. We have large expenses for labor, including engineering, and we have huge investments in infrastructure and loans for that infrastructure, which are loaned at interest that we have to pay for. So if you take all of our expenses to create that barrel of oil, then the price of that barrel of oil, reflecting all those actual expenses, is going to be something you can't afford. It'll be $200 a barrel, or maybe more. And when you sit someone down, maybe they would become conspiratorial. Maybe they would be like, well, you could do it differently. You could, it doesn't have to be so expensive. You're just making that up. It's like, okay, fine. Then let's just say that we don't increase the price of the fuel to reflect the actual expense of creating the product for you. Okay? Let's just look at the harms that are caused by climate change. Because you are burning it. And when you burn it, you release CO2. And when you release CO2, you enhance the greenhouse effect. When you enhance the greenhouse effect, the planet gets hotter, as we've seen. And the planet getting hotter has impacts There's impacts to the operation of other parts of the economy, like agriculture, transportation of things other than fossil fuels, like food, the operation of stores. It's just so hot. You have to run air conditioning all the time. So that puts more of a load on the electrical grid, and then that means there's people have to go out and fix the electrical grid at expense and upgrade the electrical grid at additional expense. And then if you don't want any blackouts, well then we have to do a lot of work on the grid. So the heating, just the heating, I'm just talking about just the heating, not the flooding, not the hail, not the droughts. There's a lot of other things that come. The smoke, we're seeing that right now. The smoke from all the fires. Just dealing with the heat. Okay, just the heat all by itself, because that is there, right? It's right there in global heating. Global heating. There's going to be heat. No joke. All right? Global heating, heat. No joke. Well, then you have all that expense. So even if we keep the price of fossil fuels, like, products, gasoline, diesel, aviation fuel, bunker fuel for the cargo ships, even if we keep the price the same, or we could even lower it. Let's say we just strip the whole capitalist model out and no profits for anybody. Okay, we can lower the price. We can increase consumption. We can give it away for free. If we do all those things, and you can't even point to an expense in your budget for gasoline and diesel and aviation fuel and all the rest of it, plastics and pharmaceuticals and all the rest of it, right? Even if there's no expense at all from the actual fossil fuels, you have the expense from the burning of them. That creates global heating. So, what are we supposed to do here? You do have to stop burning fossil fuels. That's what has to happen. And all of people's complaints about how their lives are going to become difficult without cheap and available gasoline for their private vehicle, okay? All the complaints, even if they're true, even if taken at face value, do not compare to what's happening with you and will continue to happen with you because of global heating. People are going to die. They're already dying in large numbers. We're having mass fatality events all around the planet. And we're just barely getting into summer. There's worse to come. Oh, and by the way, we also have a gargantuan Godzilla planet-eating El Nino event coming. That's not supposed to peak until November. What's that going to do to us? Nothing good. All right, nothing good. And then, because we keep burning fossil fuels, even if they're free, okay, we keep burning them. Therefore, we keep enhancing the greenhouse effect. That doesn't go away just because the price of your fossil fuel products goes to zero. Right? If we stop subsidizing the oil companies and we keep pumping the gas and pumping the diesel and flying the jets back and forth, we keep doing all those things, and probably we would do more, right? If it was really affordable, we could probably even do more of all those things. Then your problems with the greenhouse effect just multiply. And then your expense isn't the fossil fuels themselves. Your expense is what you're doing with them. And who is doing this? It's not the oil companies. And if they're giving this stuff away, everyone's absolutely happy and thrilled with the oil companies all of a sudden. But that didn't change your problem. Because your problem was never the oil companies. Your problem was you being dependent on burning fossil fuels. That was your problem. And when someone comes out and says we have to stop subsidizing the fossil fuel companies and we have to stop the oil companies and we must, carbon neutral and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, well, you're the one doing this. They're doing this for you so that you can do the things you do. What are the things you do? Okay, it's 5 things. It's always the same 5 things. Driving, meaning in your car. Flying, maybe your personal jet, probably the airline industry. Driving, flying, movement of goods from China, movement of money, that's the financial system, and jobs, that's you. That's what happens when you have available fossil fuels, meaning you can afford them and they are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. You drive, you fly, you transport, you invest in things you shouldn't invest in, and then you have a job. And then people will say, well, those are all good things. Well, no, those are all parts of civilization. I understand that. For since 1850. Well, we didn't have cars, but we had transportation, right? We even had ships, steel ships that would go back and forth between nations, transporting goods. Not like we do now, of course. This is completely unhinged, but back then people still did that in their iron ships with their steam engines, right? Using coal, right? They were doing that a long time ago. So this has been going on a long time, and civilization is now based on this. You have to drive, you have to fly, you have to move goods, you have to move money, and you have to have a job. I mean, this is not even arguable. That's what your civilization is. And those things are all made possible by you having access to fossil fuels. You're driving, you're flying, you're Amazon Prime, the loan for your house, the construction of your house, your job, your salary, your medical coverage, your kids going to the school, the groceries in the supermarket. Oh, that's all for you. That's all civilization keeping you alive and keeping you going forward in the way that we now do things. We used to do things different 1,000 years ago. Fair enough. But the world was different 1,000 years ago. People were different 1,000 years ago. And 1,000 years ago, there was 200 million people in the planet instead of 8,000 million people. Yeah, those are real numbers, folks. 200 million is an actual number, and that's how many people were present on the earth 1,000 years ago. And 8,000 million is another number. 8,000 million is the current population of the earth. Actually, a little over that. It's more like 8,300. A bit over 8,000. Doesn't matter. Round figures. 8,000 million people on earth who don't have any story for survival that doesn't involve driving, flying, moving goods around the planet, moving money around the planet, and having a job. Nobody in that 8,000 million people has a story that doesn't involve those things. Nobody in that 8,000 million has a story without cheap and available products from crude oil. If the oil companies ever stop, or if we ever stop subsidizing the expense of finding, extracting, and distributing crude oil, if any of those two things ever happen, if they ever stop, or we stop subsidizing the work they do for us, those 8,000 million people won't have a story. Just won't. They won't be alive. They won't have any way to live. They won't have any food in the stores. They won't have any job to go to. They won't have any way to get there. They won't have any food in their neighborhood because they're not agrarian people. There was a time when, nearly everybody in civilization, I mean, of course, it was the Middle Ages, right? Doesn't matter. Nearly everybody was working in agriculture. The king did not, and his court did not, and the merchant class did not, and there was always a contingent of professional workers, like the blacksmith, the leather worker, the tailor, and we still have these family names, right? Miller, Taylor, Carpenter, Smith. Okay, these were family names, but they were what they did, and either everybody was in agriculture, or they were a smith or a tailor or a baker or a fuller, or they were the king. And most of humanity worked in agriculture. But that was 1,000 years ago. We don't do that now. You don't know anybody who works in agriculture. You don't personally. I mean, I don't. Do I? Let me think. I know some people who are agriculture adjacent because they do, my neighbors over here, they do lawn care. But that's just agriculture adjacent. It's just plants, right? They're mowing lawns and clipping hedges. So it's like agriculture adjacent, but they're not growing food. Do I know anybody? I mean, I could find somebody. There's lots of agriculture within an hour or maybe two of where I currently live. I could find farmers. Oh, actually, we have farmers markets all around here, the Bay Area, because we got a lot of fucking money, all right? And we're willing to go to a tiny little market, pop-up market that sells peaches at twice the cost you get them at Whole Foods, not Whole Foods maybe, Safeway. Whole Foods is also really expensive. And so, but it's organic. It's the local farmer, and we talk to the guy, and he's a good guy, and his kids are working with him under the stall, right? And they're weighing out the peaches, and everyone's happy, and and so we go to the farmer's market, and we have this great experience. It's like going out to the beach or something, and we're buying peaches, and we're buying kale, and we're buying fresh garlic, and cheeses, and fresh breads, and all this other stuff at the farmer's market. So yeah, if when I go to the farmer's market, which we do fairly frequently, I can shake the hand of a farmer. Probably. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they're just working for the farmer. But sometimes it's the actual farmer. They'll tell you, oh, yeah, this is my family. This is what we produce. We made all this. And you can tell they're proud about it. And the kids are like, yeah, I work for my dad. Well, good for you. So I can go to a farmer's market and shake the hand of an actual farmer. Sir, madam, let me shake your hand. But that's because I live in a wealthy community and we have farmers markets, okay? And yeah, the peaches are twice what I would pay in Safeway, but I'm not going there to save money. I'm going there to meet the farmer. So I can, anytime I want to, find a farmer and shake that person's hand. That's how you do it, though, because I'm not a farmer, and none of my neighbors are farmers, and I don't have a farm nearby. I would have to either drive 2 hours to the Salinas Valley or somewhere else, Fresno, or I go to my farmer's market and I find the farmer who came from the Salinas Valley. I'm trying to make a point. The world has changed. You're not in agriculture. You don't live in a small, essentially a mud hut, wattle and daub. You don't live in a mud hut with a thatch roof, and probably with your animals inside to keep them warm and safe. You don't live in that and work in the King's Fields and have your own little 1/4 acre of garden and other things you have to raise, and your own pig and your own chickens. You don't live like that. Neither do I. And we wouldn't want to. Yeah. Oh, I want to live. Have animals in the living room? Dirt floor, and I have to sweep out the dung in the morning. Dung is fertilizer. You're putting that on the plants, okay? I can't live like that. Thatch roof stinks, smoke. There's a hole in the roof for the smoke to go out. There's not even a chimney. I couldn't live like that. That's right. You don't. And you don't want to. And what keeps you away from having to live like that, growing your own food and having your own animals and managing your own supplies of everything, and having a carpenter right next door, and having a smith right over here, and having a miller down over there who actually grinds up the wheat to make flour, having all these people, is fossil fuels. That's it. Cheap and available fossil fuels. And we're never going to stop that. Are you kidding me? Or are we being serious here? Let's just be serious for a minute, shall we? I want to be serious. I want to have the adult conversation. If we were to tell the oil companies, force them, stop doing what you're doing. 41 gigatons of CO2 released into the atmosphere annually is a bad idea. 100 million barrels of oil consumed daily by civilization. That's bad. Shame on you, okay? Stop doing that. All right? If we were to actually do that, storm the Capitol and demand cessation of all oil exploration, all oil field development, and no more gasoline, no more diesel, and no more 41 billion tons of CO2 released into the atmosphere. That's insanity. No more 100 million barrels of oil developed daily out of the ground. Stop. Stop it all. Stop. Well, the day after, you got all that, and that's a sensible thing to want, by the way. But the day after you got all that, how is the world different? Do you think you're just going to go on living your life now that you've stopped the oil companies and stopped the crude oil and stopped the greenhouse gases and stopped the CO2 emissions? You think you're just going to go home and just get in your car and drive down to Starbucks for a latte? You think that's what's going to happen? Okay, well, maybe for a couple of days you continue to do that. And then pretty soon your car runs out of gas. You have to go to the service station. And that works too, because there's gasoline and diesel in the ground. So you fill up your car and the price is probably the same. Or maybe the price is doubled or tripled already. And it might be. right? Well, it might already be going up. This is the last of it, after all. This is the last of the oil and last of the gasoline, because you went to the oil companies and said, stop it. And they said, okay. You went to the oil companies and said, stop. They said, okay, fine. I mean, I'm just making this up, right? But let's just say you got what you wanted. Stop the oil companies. Stop the pollution. And they say, okay. And then some days later, when you need to get gas for your car, because you're still going to Starbucks and you're still going to Whole Foods and you're still going to the farmer's market, you're still taking the kids to school, you still have your job, you still have everything else, and you're in your car, you're driving down the road. Yep, we stopped the oil companies. Good for us. Pat on the back. You're the good guy now. You stop the oil companies driving down the road, and then you have to get gas. And you go to the gas, and it's $80 a gallon because they haven't had any deliveries. And they're down to the last 150 gallons. And they're going to get $80 a gallon for that shit, because why not? And you're not ready to buy that day, and because you weren't willing to pay $80 a gallon, you come back the next day thinking, well, maybe it'll be lower. No, it's $200 a gallon for that same gasoline. And then there isn't any. So at some point, a week later, after we stopped the oil companies and stopped the extraction of crude oil and stopped the CO2 pollution, we stopped the greenhouse effect, stop all these things, stop it. Global heating is a real threat. We're going to stop this now. And they're all like, okay, fine, we'll do that. And then 7 days later, no driving. You see where this is headed? You think I'm wrong? You think it's hyperbole and I'm making this shit up? No. Okay. Day 7. No driving. No flying. No movement of goods. No finances. And no jobs. Because that's how that actually works. And that's when you wished you bought a copy of my book. Because for my book, that's day 1. You see. That's day 1. And then you got 100 days to figure it out. Now, there's more to it than just day 1, because you're not going to just go to the oil companies and say, stop the oil, stop the extraction of, stop the CO2 pollution. Okay, you're not going to do that. And they're not, and if you do, they're not going to say, okay, boss, that's what you want? We just never really understood what you wanted. That's what you want? Stop the oil? Stop the oil companies? Okay. All right, we're done. Bye. Okay, if you got what you wanted in this fictional timeline, then that's day 1. Yeah, that's day 1. And you got 100 days to figure out your shit. And you won't. Most people won't. One of the abiding themes in my novel is that most people just disappear. The novel does not explore. A little bit. There's actually a essay written by the narrator who's writing the novel. I mean, I'm writing the novel, but there's a narrator who's keeping a journal, and the journal becomes the novel. See how that works? So the journalist, okay, who's actually a character in the novel, speculates what happened to the people. I'm sitting around here in my neighborhood, I'm looking around, I don't see anybody. I mean, day 1, people were still moving around. Day 2, and then there was fights for gasoline and diesel, and then the service stations ran dry, and then we saw people leaving town. We could tell they were leaving town because, they had SUVs and all this stuff piled up on the top, and the car, the dog in the back seat, and all this was going on. And that's about day 5 or day 7, and then the looting started, but that didn't last very long because those people need fossil fuels too, right? You can't be a looter without fossil fuels. And if you are successful as a looter, who's going to buy your stuff? What are you going to do with it? You don't have an economy anymore. Nobody has any money. Nobody has any jobs. Normally, if you looted, Walmart and you came out with a 72-inch TV, you'd sell that on eBay, and you make $200. Well, now there's no fossil fuels, so there's no jobs, and there's no finances, and there's nothing, and people are leaving town. And now you've got a 72-inch TV, brand new in the box. What are you going to do with it? Sparky, you got a plan? You can't eat it. Oh, well, that's the other thing that's going away is all the food, because now we're like day ate into 100 days of bullshit, okay? And now you've got a 72-inch TV and you still don't have anything to eat. What do? It doesn't work. I'm not saying it won't happen. Of course, there will be looters and there will be mobs and there will be gangs and but it doesn't work. And in the novel, It Was 100 Days, I write an essay on that. It doesn't work. You see, it doesn't work. Nothing works. And by the end of 20 days, when everything is very clearly not working, nothing is working, people start to wonder what they're going to do with their lives. I mean, apart from dying, there's always that. You can always just die. You can always die, or as happens in the book, you can become a cannibal zombie. That's another thing you can do. You can become a cannibal zombie, or you can die, or you cannot do those two things. And what does it look like when you don't do those two things? Well, it looks like my novel. Although it does have dead people in it, and it does have cannibal zombies, and they're fun, but, it's not about them. This is not about the cannibal zombies, because they don't have a story. This is not about the looters. They're like 2 lines. Okay, there's an essay. There is an essay that contains something about the looters. But in the journalism, there's no discussion of the looters. They came, okay. The civilization collapses. There are looters. It's not about them. It's more like something happened in the house across the street. I went out in the morning, and the people who used to live across the street are gone, and the house has been ransacked, and I never saw anybody, and I never heard anything. And there was another house, one house down that caught fire, and I don't know why it caught fire. Well, when I went in there, everything was gone. The TVs, the computers, the water heater was all gone. And then later, we find this stuff piled up in warehouses, piled up outside in the rain, rusting, okay? Because there was no use for it. So even though these things happen, because these are human impulses, when the oil is gone, these are the human impulses, even though these things happen, they're of no consequence, and there's nothing to say about it. It didn't matter. The book is not about the looters. They disappear. The book is not about the cannibal zombies. They're a joke. The book is not about all the people who hit the road and disappear and are never seen again. That's a tragedy. The book is about the people who don't do those things. And it's their story for 100 days. I'm pitching the book because I'm trying to make a different point. You can think clearly about this. You want to go after the oil companies? You want to yank their subsidies? You want to make them pay? You want to imprison their CEOs? And, okay? Yeah, well, then you better read my book before you do all that. You should still do all that, by the way. We need to stop burning fossil fuels. But before that happens, you should get a copy of my book and read it. Because after you stop the fossil fuels, then Amazon Prime isn't going to deliver you my book, because that's where it comes from. There's a big printer warehouse somewhere at Amazon out there in some rural county that doesn't have regulations, and they're printing books and they're doing all this stuff. And if you order my book, then they'll print it for you and they'll put it in a paper bag and they'll send it to you and you'll have my book. And then after then you can go to the governor and say, no more subsidies for fossil fuels, and jail the CEOs of the fossil fuel companies, and fossil fuels are bad and we must stop carbon emissions and no more fossil fuel production. Okay, and then of course then no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no movement of money, and no jobs. So now you're unemployed, you got no money, you got my book, you go home, you read my book, and you go, okay, day one. What do we do first? Here we go. All right. Order the book first, then destroy the economy. Now, I kind of made some admission. Maybe it's only in the description, but I will make this admission now. The oil companies did do something bad. They did do something bad. But it was It was a lie, and they did it because they didn't want to have their business model disrupted. But in the end, even the lie was for all of us. Because here's what they did. Back in the 60s, after 150 years of other people doing actual science on the greenhouse effect, Fourier, Eunice Foote, Tyndall, Svante Arrhenius, and hundreds of other completely anonymous researchers who were looking at this thing and studying the greenhouse effect and the role of CO2 emissions on enhancing the greenhouse effect. After 150 years of that work, the oil companies, one day in the 50s, some engineer said, excuse me, did you know that our product, when sold as a product to people who want to use it, destroys the planet for human purposes? No. Oh, yeah, it does. Really? How is that possible, son? Well, let me give you some science. Is this all true? Oh, yes, this is sciencey stuff. Oh, well, how come I haven't heard about this? Well, because no one wants to talk about it. So back in the 50s, the oil companies knew. They knew. Because they have scientists and engineers, and they knew. So they started doing their own science. Okay? So what is really happening? Let's look at this then. Because if we're vulnerable to this, we should get out in front of it, right? And they discovered, yep, it's all true. It took them a little while, and they published papers internally. Yep, it's all true. Greenhouse effect is being whacked out of place. The Earth dynamic system is going to overheat. We don't know when it's going to happen. It could be 100 years from now or 200 years from now, but it doesn't matter. We don't want people to know about this because we want to continue to sell our product. And the tobacco companies did the same thing. Yep, tobacco causes cancer. We've got the research numbers right in front of us. Well, darn, shucks. But we don't want people to know that because if they know that, they'll stop consuming our product. So we're going to convince people that it's fine. Well, they're allowed to do that. Right? Aren't they? Aren't they allowed to convince you that smoking cigarettes is fine? And they probably would say smoking cigarettes makes you look cool. And there's James Dean on the silver screen, smoking a cigarette, hanging in half hours from mouth. Yeah, I'm James Dean. I'm cool. And so every kid who sees James Dean smoking a cigarette on the screen rushes out and buys cigarettes and smokes cigarettes and tries to look like James Dean. That's just chimp stuff. We're just chimps. James Dean is a cool chimp, cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And so every kid wants to be the chimp. So they go out and they buy tobacco. So you don't even have to, you just sell the glamour. They did the same thing with women. Women on the silver screen, smoking a cigarette. Yep, I'm a free woman. I do whatever I want. Here I am smoking a cigarette just like a man. Yep, women's rights, female liberty, freedom for women, smoking a cigarette. And so all the women ran out and started smoking cigarettes. It was easy to sell. It's all monkey business. It's all monkeys. It's just the monkey brain. Monkey see, monkey do. We know how that works. The oil companies looked at what the tobacco industry did. And the same people who did it for the tobacco industry, who made it glamorous, now went to the oil companies and said, look, you can't change science. You can't change physics. If this is going to happen, it's going to happen. But in the meantime, you can change perceptions. James Dean with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Cool stud monkey at the county fair smoking a cigarette. See, that was us. That's what the lobbyists said. That was us. We helped the tobacco industry to sell their product as glamorous. So we're going to help you, the oil industry, to unwind all this. And so they destroyed science. And that's what happened. It was all written in the book Merchants of Doubt. They destroyed science. Because that's what they had to do. They had to destroy science. Because global heating is science. It's not even medical science. It's actual hard science. Physics. It's physics. And atmospheric physics and chemistry. So they just had to destroy science. And that's what they learned from helping the tobacco industry. They destroyed medicine. And they glamorized smoking. And then they had to go to the oil companies and they said, okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to destroy science and we're going to glamorize driving. And they did. And it worked because monk, chip, banana. Okay? Chip time, I want the banana. And it works. It works to this day. And now, of course, so they lied. It's not lying. I don't want to call it that. It's propaganda. Okay, it's kind of a lie. Propaganda is a lie. But It wasn't that kind of a lie. Because what they were telling people was driving is cool. And everyone agreed. Oh, yeah, it is kind of cool. Speed is cool. You look better in a nice looking car. Everyone agrees. Yes, that's true. That's not a lie. That's actually true. And now people tint their windows, and if they're sitting in their car and they're a big fat schlub and, whatever, the pasty appearance and, head this big, and they just tint the windows. And they've got an expensive Mercedes with tinted windows, and they look great. I mean, they feel like they look great because you can't see them being a schlub, overweight and diabetic and fat ankles, and they're driving and, they can barely see over the steering wheel or whatever's going on in their life. And they look great because they're in a car with tinted windows. And so that's what they're selling. And it works. It works for people. People want that. It's not even a lie. It's just what people want. But they knew. The oil companies knew that this was coming. They didn't lie about any of it. They simply didn't want people to know. And that's a different kind of problem than lying about something. They sowed doubt. So, do you want to punish the oil company executives for sowing doubt about the problems associated with their product? Well, yeah, you could probably do that. You could probably even justify it. You could probably even convince the courts. These people lied to the world and the American people in particular. We, the American people, have standing. We want to sue them for lying to us, because if they hadn't lied to us and convinced us that cars make us look cool and cars make us rich and cars and transportation and fossil fuels and driving and flying and moving of goods and finances and jobs, they lied to us that these were all great things. Of course, they are great things. So actually the judge is going to look at you and say, wait, are you saying those are great things? You don't want those things? Okay, actually, Judge, I do want those things. Then why are you suing the oil company executives? Because all they did was give you those things. And he's probably going to throw you out of the court right there on the spot. All right. But let's say you didn't bother bringing all that into it. All the virtues of consuming fossil fuels. You simply stuck to the point. They lied to us. They told us lies to our face. They destroyed science. That's a different kind of crime. That's not even a crime, of course. You want to destroy science, go ahead. You want to destroy sports, organized sports? I mean, go ahead. It's not a crime to do that. You want to destroy religions? Go ahead. That's not a crime. That's just something you're doing. And you can do that. So they destroyed science. That's not a crime. That's not going to get you thrown in jail. And again, the judge is going to say, so they destroyed trust in science? That's what you're here to complain about? You can trust science all you want to. They just said that maybe you shouldn't. So if the oil companies are saying maybe you shouldn't trust science, which is what they did, because they had done the science themselves, and they didn't want any more science. No more science-y shit. This climate research, no. That's what they were saying. Stop climate research. We did it. We did all the climate research you need done. We published the papers internally. Of course, then we set fire to them. But it doesn't matter. We did all the climate science needs to be done. No more climate science. Defund the climate scientists, which they have now done. That doesn't change physics. Physics is still going to do its thing. So the judge is going to say, what do you want from me? I can't change physics. You wanted the driving. You wanted the flying. You did those things. You wanted cheap gasoline, available everywhere, all the time, 24/7. You had that. What are you suing the oil companies for? Because they lied to us. No, they told you what you wanted to hear. If they had told you, I mean, you could have read Arrhenius yourself. You could have, there was all this other science being done. And then when Al Gore came out and did his Inconvenient Truth, people scorned, ridiculed Al Gore. It's like the judge now is going to say, Al Gore did his thing. Okay? And you scorned Al Gore and dragged him through the mud, and you didn't have to do that. You could have said, Al, thank you. Thank you so much for removing the scales from our eyes. But you didn't do that. You excoriated him and dragged him through the mud and ruined his reputation, destroyed his political career, because he talked about the Inconvenient Truth. So there was some science for you that was even popularized science. Even a chimp could understand what he was talking about. And you ridiculed him and dragged him through the mud. And then you promptly forgot about the whole thing. Never brought it up again. You did that. And now it's 2026 and the whole fucking world is on fire. And you're coming in here and you think you have standing. And you're going to sue the oil company executives because in 1965 they lied to you about something that everyone has been trying to tell you since then is true. And you didn't want to hear it. You didn't believe it. It was all a hoax. Politicians told you a hoax. You kept electing those motherfuckers. And they kept telling you it was a hoax because that's what you wanted to hear. And now you're coming to me in the courts and you want to stop the oil companies and stop to this and stop to that. And you have no, fine, you have nothing, you don't have a leg to stand on. You're out. Case dismissed. And then people will say, well, the judges, they're corrupt. The judges are in the pockets of the oil companies. No. No, you're a bunch of fucking idiots. You're fucking chimps. And the judge is saying, you're acting like a bunch of chimps. You knew all along, and now you want to drag the oil company executives out of their comfortable suites and drag them down the street and lynch them from a lamp pole or sue them or destroy them or bankrupt them or do whatever it is you think you want to do, because now turns out Al Gore was right. And now you feel bad about yourself because you told Al Gore he was a loser. And I'm going to drive and I'm going to fly and my sacred this and my way of life and my American freedoms and my guns and my everything else. And you destroyed science. You repudiated the education systems. Anybody who had a theory on climate change, then now they're alarmist and now they're a nervous Nelly. And they've got an agenda, and it's all an agenda, and all this kind of bullshit. Well, of course, this is all coming out of the oil companies, right? They're telling you. Scientists have an agenda. It's all a hoax. But you wanted to believe it. And Al Gore sacrificed himself basically on the cross. Okay? He basically sacrificed himself on the cross to try and get the word out to you, and you just ignored it. And you made him feel bad. You told him he was an idiot, and that he had an agenda. And sweep that under the rug. And now it's 2026. The whole fucking world is on fucking fire. The fucking entire fucking world is on fucking fire. And it's going to burn forever. Oh, wait, not forever, actually. It will burn until it runs out of fuel. That's what's going to happen. It's going to burn until it runs out of fuel. And now you want to do something about the oil companies. Ha! Ha ha ha. That's funny. That's funny as hell. That's the funniest thing I've heard all day. Global heating is real. The temperatures are soaring. Records are being broken left, right, and center. We're worried. Our towns are on fire. Our supply chains are in danger. We've been consuming fossil fuels. Now we're going to go after the oil companies because they're so bad. The oil companies are so bad. I'm like, ha, ha, ha. That's just another level of denial. What a bunch of chimps. You're still playing the same stupid game you were playing all along. Tell me a fairy tale. Tell me a happy story. Tell me it isn't real. Tell me that nothing I'm doing is causing the problem. I'm not consuming fossil fuels. All I'm doing is my job. All I'm doing is driving and flying and ordering on Amazon and taking out loans and having money in the bank and having a job to get that money. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. It's not my fault that all those things require constant, copious access to cheap and available fossil fuels. But it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's Al Gore's fault for not telling me in a way that I could understand. It's science's fault for not telling me this was all true in a way that I could understand the truth of it. It's academia's fault for not teaching every child from the age of 5 atmospheric physics. It's their fault. It's not my fault. All I'm doing is driving and flying and moving goods and Amazon Prime and my job and my house and my mortgage and my student loan and everything else I do, and my second house in Tahoe and my trip to Spain and that's all I'm doing. That's all I do. I'm not extracting oil from the ground. I'm not fracking. I'm not running a refinery. I'm just driving and flying and ordering Amazon and having deliveries to my house and the vacations, the second home and college loans. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. How could I possibly be at fault? It can't possibly be my fault. There's nothing I am doing that created any of this. What's the solution here? There is. This does have an ending. Oh yes, it definitely has an ending. Now, that's not a solution. It's an ending. Okay? Let's just be very clear on that. This has an outcome. It has a terminus. It's headed in a direction, and that direction is down the road, not very far at this point, but it's just down the road, and that's where it ends. That's the end of the road. That's not a solution. I want to be very clear about that. That's how it ends. How does this end? There are two ways that this ends, and only two. There's no third path. I'm going to mention the two ways. I'm going to emphasize why there's two. And then I'm going to try to prove to you there's no third path. So you need to understand right now that there's two ways that this road comes to that end. I hear this wording increasingly used. I've been using it for a while. This road ends at one of two places. One of the places it ends is called an uncontrolled demolition. The road ends because it's demolished. There is no road. The other way this ends, the other way that this road ends as a road, meaning there's no more road after this, is a controlled demolition. That's your two paths. The road, it's not like it splits, because we're all on the same road, and we will take a road that's now already defined in our future. We will take this road to the end, and at the end, we will have got there through one of two processes: a uncontrolled demolition or a controlled demolition. The road has ended. That's what demolition means. It's over. An uncontrolled demolition means we actually take no measures of any kind to anticipate the end of the journey, end of the road. We drive, we fly, we ship our goods all over the planet, we manufacture, we develop the world, more housing, more data centers, more apartments, more everything, more fulfillment centers. And then we have our jobs, we drive to our job, and we get our job, and we spend the money, and we love the money, and we get a raise, and that is actually an uncontrolled demolition, because it means we're not doing anything that recognizes that this road, it ends right up there. I'm looking at it. I can see that it ends. And knowing that it ends, I see it. It's right here in the book. It was 100 days. It's day one. Okay. I read the book. Day one. I recognize the book. I recognize day one. It's right there. Okay. We don't do that. We just do our driving and our flying and our moving our goods and our Amazon Prime and our Facebook and our internet and our brand new iPhone every year, and shipping from China and our jobs, and we just do those things, and then we run off the edge of the road. The bridge is down. It's demolished. We just go off at speed. Okay. Oh, wait, where's the road? Wait, there's supposed to be, oh, now it's behind me. Well, what's in front of me? Nothing. Okay, that's an uncontrolled demolition. The alternative to that is a controlled demolition, because you're getting demolition regardless. And I know that's a painful thought, but you're getting a demolition regardless. The controlled demolition is, oh, we're fucked. Al Gore was right. The oil companies lied to us. It was an easy lie to sell. It's what we wanted to hear, but they lied. Okay? Science is real. It's not a hoax. It's not an agenda. Planetary physics is actual physics, like gravity. It's real. Okay? Fuck. And we know at that point, the road has an end. We can't keep doing this. Fuck. Okay. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing the driving and the flying and the movement of the goods and the manufacturing, the money and the jobs and the careers and the loans. And we can't keep doing that. Stop, because all of that is fossil fuels. We can only do these things with constant availability of cheap and available fossil fuels 24/7. Okay, that has to stop. And the way I like to propose it is that all the things you might do, and these are all the third paths that people propose, all the third ways we could go that are not an uncontrolled demolition and are not a controlled demolition. All these are the third ways that people want to propose. Oh, well, we can live on Mars. We can live in domes. We can pull the CO2 out of the atmosphere. We can have alternatives. We can be resilient. We can be adaptive. We can whatever. We can manipulate the planetary system with, geoengineering, and we can do this. We can have rockets, so we can do all the things. More data, more science. We can do all these pathways they'd rather go down. Okay, and my response to that is, okay, that's fine. That's fine. You innovate, you invent, you come up with new materials, you roll out nuclear power, find more solar panels for everything. Everything is electrified, including the flying. Okay, including the manufacturing, including everything else. It's all electrified. Okay, you do that. However, you do that after first you turn off the fossil fuels, because that's what you have to do. We don't have to manufacture solar panels using electricity from solar panels. I mean, that's a nice to have. It's not done currently, but maybe you could do that. Maybe you could manufacture solar panels from raw materials, meaning bauxite and sand. Maybe you could manufacture solar panels from raw materials using just solar panels, just electricity from solar panels, or maybe wind, right? But we don't do that now. So that's a project. You're going to have to figure out how to do that. But whatever you figure out to do, any third path you're going to take, and some of it's just unicorn farts, right? Some of it's just rose-colored glasses. We'll just a miracle. We'll just innovate until the miracle happens. It's like, okay, let's try to be adults here, okay? Whatever you do, including miracles, the first thing you have to do is stop burning fossil fuels. Because if your miracle requires that we keep burning fossil fuels, and maybe even more fossil fuels than we're burning now, just to have your little pink pony miracle, then we're all going to die from global heating. And that's bad. That's what we're trying to avoid. So we'll do your miracle solution after we turn off the fossil fuels. And then you're going to hear, well, we can't do that then. We have to keep burning fossil fuels in order to have my pink pony miracle that's going to save the world from fossil fuels. Okay, well, then we're not having an adult conversation. At this point, we're just spitballing. We're just spitballing. We're going to spitball the future. And I'm here to tell you the future is right down the road. This road ends. And someone's then going to say, well, but if we don't choose to stop burning fossil fuels, we just keep burning fossil fuels so that the road never ends, right? Driving forever, flying forever, manufacturing and moving goods around the planet and big, huge ships forever. My job forever. I even want to live forever. AI and robots and everything forever. Utopia, UBI, all of it, right? All of it forever. Okay? Well, then, fine. Burn all the fossil fuels you want to. We go from 100 million barrels daily. That's the number, right? I know you don't believe that. 100 million barrels of oil daily. We'll go to 150 million barrels of oil daily. And even if you want to make the argument there's an infinite amount of oil because reasons, and there is no limit, and fine, there's no limit to oil. But you're still fucking up the atmosphere. You keep enhancing the greenhouse effect. The planet keeps getting hotter. The heat waves keep getting worse. You keep trying to develop the pink pony that's going to save us from global heating. And you're using fossil fuels to investigate pink ponies. And you're going to have all these miracles and all these things are going to happen. It's all going to be wonderful and pink ponies and rose-colored glasses. And then the place is so fucking hot, everyone dies. Because that's where you're going. Because we don't stop at 432 parts per million, where we are now. We go to 482, and then 552, and we just keep going up, and the planet keeps getting hotter, and the heat waves keep getting worse. And then they're not just summer heat waves, then they're continuous heat waves, and the summer ones are, if anything, worse than the winter ones. But the winter ones still kill people, and it's just hot. It's hothouse Earth, and it's hot from the equator all the way to the poles. And all the ice is melting, and the sea level has risen 200 feet. And it did that in 10 years because the heat was so intense. And now, you're still burning fossil fuels, driving and flying and moving goods and manufacturing and research and innovation and pink ponies, rainbows and dragons and miracles left, right, and center. Fossil fuels. I need a miracle, and then you're dead because you didn't get a miracle. Because there is no miracle. Because miracles are miracles. By definition, they don't exist. And you run out of time. And maybe if you had infinite time to go with your infinite fossil fuels, and if you had, and global heating was never going to kill you on day one, then maybe given infinite time and infinite resources and infinite human ingenuity, maybe you could solve the problem in a way that saves us from destruction while we continue to burn fossil fuels. Because that's what we have to do. Because we have to drive and fly and manufacture and move our goods on container ships and have a job and have money and schools and resources and food in the markets and refrigeration and animal husbandry and butchers and transporting frozen carcasses all across the country. Airplanes bringing food from Guatemala and the farmers market bringing food from the Salinas Valley 2 hours away. Okay, well, fine, you're going to have all that. But you're going to have that miracle too. And you ran out of time. Because the world is on fire now. It's on fire. The world is burning. And if you seriously think, if anyone seriously thinks that with the world on fucking fire, where people can't even go outside and breathe the air, excuse me, that you're now going to innovate and pull a miracle out of miracle land to solve this problem for you, while the problem is killing you, while it's already tearing you down, that you cannot breathe the air. And now you're going to save the world using fossil fuels and technology. I don't think so. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think we've run out of time. And the people who, for decades now, have said climate change is real, global heating is real, the atmospheric greenhouse effect is real, fossil fuels are really contributing to this. They are now, these people, almost without exception. My wife thinks that George Monbiot is an exception. I don't know about that. I haven't heard him recently. These people, Peter Carter, Paul Beckwith, James Hansen, all of them are coming out and saying, we need a miracle. And we'll just have to come up with a miracle. That's it. That's the challenge now. We didn't do the things we had to do. We couldn't convince people not to drive and fly and move goods and have jobs. We couldn't do that. And we get to continue doing what we do. And now it's too late and we've run out of time and global heating and everything's on fucking fire and can't breathe the air and you can't be outside. It's 125 degrees and people are dying and they can't work outside and they can't work in agriculture. Think about that one. And, and so that's it. Now we need a miracle. So that's it. That's it. All the climate scientists on the planet who never bought into the hoax, never bought into the agenda, never bought into science is bad. All the climate scientist people on the planet, tens of thousands of them, are now saying we need a miracle. Okay, we need a miracle. What's the problem with that? Is there any possible problem with that? Can you see a possible problem with needing a miracle? I mean, I'm just asking. Maybe I'm wrong. We need a miracle now. What could possibly go wrong with that? You got two paths. And then you got 2,000 other paths that depend on constant consumption of free, cheap, available fossil fuels. Let's forget those for now. You got two paths. Both of them end up with you and I and civilization not having fossil fuels. One of them is a uncontrolled demolition, where we just go off the edge of the road into the chasm, and we're like, this is weird. I didn't know my car could fly. And that's it. And we die at the bottom. We, all of us, collectively die at the bottom. I think there'll be some survivors. I'm not buying into this near-term human extinction hoo-ha. Humans are the toughest animals on the planet. We'll be fine. I mean, we may be a tiny number of us. No, I don't mean a billion. I don't even mean a million. There might be 500,000 humans left or 100,000 humans left on this planet after we go over the cliff into the chasm in an uncontrolled demolition. And if we manage somehow, I just don't see it. But if we manage somehow through the UN or the Security Council or whatever, or my second book, now in process, I won't reveal that here. My second book is about the second path, controlled demolition. If we were to take that path, controlled demolition, then there might be more people than just 500,000 at the end. Because we saw the end. We acknowledged the end. And we didn't go over the cliff at speed. We went to the end of the road. And then we got out of the car. And we walked away. That's the same thing. The road ends. You're either going to go over the cliff into the chasm and die in mass, or you're going to drive your car very carefully to the edge of the road, because that's what happens when you get to the edge of the road. You drive your car to the edge of the road, and everyone gets out of the car, and you all shake hands, and you go your different directions, wishing each other the best of luck. And people will still perish because you're at the end of the road. And at the end of the road, we stop burning fossil fuels. And not because we want to, but because we have to. And maybe we've planned for that eventuality. Maybe we planned to have more solar panels and more wind power. Maybe we planned to do our manufacturing without fossil fuels. Maybe we had more recycling. There's ways to do this. Okay, we have an entire, I call it a scrap metal civilization, based on recycling everything. Scrap metal. Everything is scrap metal. We find clever ways to use, well, scrap metal, scrap wood, scrap plastic, scrap everything. But scrap metal civilization, not the Bronze Age, not the Iron Age, not the age of fossil fuels, but the age of scrap. Okay, we could have a scrap metal civilization. It could take us for a long time, but you have to give up fossil fuels first, because if you don't do that, then the planet gets so fucking hot that you can't survive above ground, and you can't survive below ground, because below ground there's nothing to eat. So what do you do with your plants? That's my son. He needs me to come out. I know this is all bad news. I know this is all horrifying. I know that. I know that. I'm not here to be horrifying. It is horrifying. I am not turning away from it. It is what it is. I just want us to stop. I do want us to stop the oil companies. I want us to leave the oil in the ground. Right now, Donald Trump is bombing fuck out of Iran, and they've closed the Straits of Hormuz. Yes, more of that, please. And now Iran is blowing up the Saudi pipelines. Yes, more of that, please. Yeah, that's a terrible thing to say, right? Oh my goodness, the price of gasoline is going to be $1 a gallon more expensive. Yeah, more of that, please. I'm hoping like $20 a gallon more expensive than whatever it is now. $20 tacked on to whatever it is now would be about right. More of that, please. Because I'm really hoping for a controlled demolition, folks. I really want that. I'm not going to wait for the pink ponies and the dragons and the unicorns, okay? I want to get out of this. I want us to stop this car, open the doors, get out, give each other a hug, shake hands, and go our separate directions and hope for the best. Because the alternative, an uncontrolled demolition, just doesn't appeal to me. I want to stop. I want us to stop. I really want that. And I know what it means. It means no driving, no flying, no movement of goods, no Whole Foods, no Trader Joe's, no Target, no malls full of things from China, no jobs, no money. I know. I'm not stupid. I know. But that's what it looks like when you stop the car at the end of the road before you go over the cliff. You stop the car and you get out. And you don't even close the doors. You just walk away. And you walk away with as many people as you can that you know and you trust and you love and you can work with. And you just walk away. We have to walk away from this. And it's going to be painful. And it's going to be humiliating. And it's not going to make any sense. But we have to do that. Because the entire world is on fire. The world is on fire. And that's not a joke, people. That's global heating. And that shit doesn't stop. It doesn't even stop if we stop. The whole world is now going to burn. It is able, the conditions are correct for the entire planet to burn. And it will now do that. We won't be able to stop that. Everything green will dry and burn. That is what we deserve. Because we thought Al Gore was funny. I don't really care about Al Gore. That was an inflection point where we could have said something different. Well, we didn't. And now here we are, where the entire world is on fire. And it's going to stay on fire. And it's going to continue to burn. And it's going to get worse. And the heat waves will set the streets on fire. Everything will burn. The cities will burn. The grids will go down under load. And the grids won't come back up. And by the time they come back up, everyone's dead from the heat. Oh, do you think I'm making this up? You think I'm making this up? I'm just sitting here just making shit up. This is what's happening in the world right now. Go read the news. Get your head out of your Facebook and your TikTok and go read a newspaper. And when you see the bad news, your immediate reaction must not be, well, that can't be right. That must be a hoax. That's just fear-mongering. That can't be your reaction. Your reaction has to be, well, that's a thing. Well, fuckity fuck. I guess the world's on fire now. That has to be your reaction now. Because that's reality. And I'm not making this up. That's your world. And that world only continues the way it is, and it only gets worse. And 41 billion tons of CO2 emissions into the atmosphere must be 0 tons. Immediately. And 100 barrels of oil, 100 million barrels of oil daily consumed by us must stop. Must go to 0 million barrels of oil consumed daily. The actual number is 0. Not 100 million, not 10 million, not 1 million. 0 million. That is the solution to the world being on fucking fire, okay? And that won't even be the solution to that, because the world is already on fire, and it's going to continue to burn, because now the conditions are right for the world to burn, and it's going to burn, and you can't stop it. And even having 0 million barrels of oil produced daily, that won't stop the fires. It won't. It can't. Nothing can stop the fires. The fires don't stop. The fires never stop. The fires burn forever until there is a point where they stop burning. When there's no fuel. When every forest is burned. When every human is burned. When every animal is burned. Right? When everything is burned that can burn. Every house. Every city. Every mall. Every forest. Every cropland. Every row of wheat. And every row of corn. And every rice field. And everything else. When it's all burned. When everything that could be burned is burned. Then the fires will stop. That's how you stop the fires that we now have, that are in the news when everything burns. Now, that might be a 10-year project from here. The fires can burn a lot quickly. And as global heating gets worse, and it's even getting worse this summer because of the gargantuan El Nino that's coming, you haven't seen fires like you're going to see fires. And give it another 10 years of burning everything that can burn, including all the people and the animals and the crops and the houses and the cities and and the fuel depots and the refineries and the oil wells. Everything that can burn will burn. When everything can burn, 10 years from now, and then the fires stop, well then look at your world. You've had a nice, very nice, uncontrolled demolition. And 10 years from now, because everything has burned, and you have burned, but for the few people that haven't burned, they're not going to be driving or flying or moving goods or manufacturing or having a job or working at a job, okay? They're not going to be doing any of those things because we will have driven over the cliff and landed on the sharp rocks at the bottom of the canyon in an uncontrolled demolition because we couldn't stop. I want us to stop right now. 0, everything, because I know exactly what that gets us. What that gets us is we coast to the end of the road. We open the doors and we step out of the car. And we give each other a hug and we hold hands. And we disappear into the future. I want that. I wrote a book about that. Disappearing into the future. I am the only human on earth who wants that. Everyone else right now wants a miracle. Am I special? I don't know. I'm the only one. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean that I'm the only one who wants to stop the car and get out and walk away? Why? What's wrong with me? That I can't see the beauty of driving and flying and manufacturing? Yes, I know the beauty of it. I still want to stop the car and get out and walk away. That's what I want. Everyone else wants a miracle. Okay. Fine. Good luck with your miracle. I know something about miracles. So do you. Miracles require a miracle. Right? Am I right? And what you're going to get is uncontrolled demolition. Praying on your knees every day for a miracle. You're going to get the uncontrolled demolition. You're going to go over the cliff, over the bridge, into the chasm. You're going to crash in your billions, in your multiple billions, into the Rocky Canyon. And you're all going to die. Most of you. I don't want that. I want something else. And I'm not waiting for a miracle. I want the fossil fuel companies to stop extracting crude oil. I want them to stop refining crude oil into gasoline or diesel. I want it to stop. I want them to stop delivering fuels to the service stations and to the airports and to the port facilities, to the rail yards. I want it to stop. I want to stop driving and flying and manufacturing and moving goods and having jobs. I want it all to stop. Yes, I know that. When I get to that part, then you get nervous. The rest of it sounds fine. Leave oil in the ground. Okay, you've made your point. Don't deliver fuels to the service station. Oh, that makes me a little nervous. But then you just come out and you just say it like it's nothing. We can't drive. We can't fly. We can't manufacture. We can't have medicine. We can't have jobs. We can't have money. You just say it like it's nothing. You just like it's a wonderful thing. Like you've figured out all the problems. Now we're just going to stop driving, not have jobs, not have money. Then we're just going to do that. And that's just the simplest thing. No, it isn't simple. It's necessary. You see the difference? It's necessary. Or you could just go over the Seneca Cliff. Yeah, it has a name. It has a name. We already know what it's called. It's called the Seneca Cliff. You could do that. And what? Hope for the best? Yeah, you could do that. Hope for the best. You could do that. Sure. Yeah, you'll be taking me with you. I don't like that plan. I don't like your plan. No, I don't like your plan. I think you're stupid. I think you're a stupid bunch of chimps. I think you're a bunch of fucking morons. That's your plan. You're just going to keep doing what you're doing. You're going to go over the Seneca Cliff, and then you're going to scrape together whatever smear, bloody, broken humanity is left over. You're going to scrape that together into a tribe of people using stone tools and sharp sticks. That's your plan. That is your plan. You're going to drive right over the Seneca Cliff, and you're going to take me with you. Yeah, I don't like that plan. No, that's a stupid plan. Hey, you're a bunch of stupid morons. I can't trust you people. You're a bunch of fucking morons, okay? Chip want banana. Give me banana. Oh, now I'm going over the Seneca Cliff. Well, I got the banana. I got a nice, sweet, juicy banana. Now I'm going over the Seneca Cliff, and then I'll worry about what happens after that. Yeah, I don't like that plan. Stop the oil companies and leave it in the ground. Don't refine it. Don't deliver it. Don't use it. Just stop it. Take the hit. Take the hit, people. Take a hit now. Your world is on fucking fire. It's going to be on fire forever until it runs out of fuel. And you, by the way, let me just point out, you are fuel. Make it stop. Make it stop. I want it to stop. That's what I want. I don't want the driving. I don't want the flying. I don't want the manufacturing. Yes, I know what that means. It means it stops. Yes. And we can't support 8,000 million people without those things. Yes, I know that. And I know 8,000 million people are going to perish. I know that part too. I just happen to think my chances are better. And your chances are better too. And everyone's individual chance, even a herdsman in Africa, okay? Everyone's individual chance is better if we stop now. Many people will be lost. That just happens. We're going to be back to 200 million like we were 1,000 years ago. We may be back to 80 million, which is 1% of the current population. 1% of the current population. 80 million people. This planet may be able to support 80 million people. I doubt even that. This planet may not be able to support more than 8 million people. That's 1/10 of 1%. 1/10 of 1% of the current population. 8 million people. But that's not zero. Is it? And any plan that leaves 8 million people in opposition to 0 million people, or 8 people, or 8,000 people, that few, okay, is a better plan. Any plan that deliberately tries to preserve as much of human history as we can preserve, as much of technology as we can preserve, any plan that deliberately plans to end this without ending everything or losing all knowledge of all progress, that's a better plan than just going over the cliff and waiting to see what we get at the bottom, if anything. That's a bad plan. A better plan is to plan to stop this car, open the doors, and get out of the fossil fuel economy. Get out of it and walk away. That's a better plan. That's what I want. I know it's painful. I know it sounds stupid. I know it's scary. It sounds chaotic. It sounds like I'm an anarchist. I'm not. I'm a scientist. I understand our situation. The whole world is on fire. Is it not? Am I wrong about that? Oh, well, there's one place that's not on fire. Oh, shut up. Yes, the whole world is on fire, and everything that can burn will now burn. This is now unavoidable. No one is in control of this. And everyone wants a miracle. And I want out. Now. Yeah, I'm the only person on earth who wants out. I'm the only living human being on earth that wants out. Well, la-dee-da. How's that feel? How does it feel to be the only person on earth who wants out? Sucks. Because it means we're not going to do it. It's going to take 200 million people, most of them in the wealthy West, who want this to stop, and then it will stop. 200 million people is about right. And then maybe we can stop this. Not one, not me by myself, on a YouTube channel with 145 subscribers. I'm not stopping jack, okay? I'm not stopping anything. But 200 million people, with or without YouTube channels or followers or anything else, right? Yeah, maybe 200 million, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, possibly, maybe not. Could stop this and stop the car before it goes over the Seneca Cliff and get out of the car and give each other a hug and promise that we'll be as the best that we can be and walk away from this together. If you had 200 million people like me, maybe, I don't know, maybe you could pull this off. That's it for me. I got other things to do. Yeah, I still do things every day, just like everybody else. I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you do. Buy the book. Link in the description. Read the book. Read it. Plan your life around not having fossil fuels. You can do that now. If you don't own a bicycle, buy one. If you don't have any food growing in your backyard, plant some food. Right? You can do these things. You can start gearing your life around a different kind of life. You can do that. You can do that anytime you want to. People are not going to stop you from doing that. You can start thinking about it. And like me, you can start saying, okay, this has got to end. This has got to end. We can't keep driving. We can't keep flying. We can't keep manufacturing in China and shipping it to North America for a single use before it goes in the landfill. Okay, we just can't. No. No. This is suicide. Well, actually, it's a murder-suicide. We're going to kill everyone else and everything else, all life on Earth, and then we're going to kill ourselves. It's a murder-suicide. It's the worst kind. It's the worst kind of suicide. We're going to kill everything else on Earth. Everything's going to burn, including all the animals, and then we're going to commit suicide. Let's not, okay? And let's start having a conversation about not doing that. I would like to have that conversation of not doing that. Make sure people see this video. Read my book. Make sure other people read my book. Have book reading clubs around my book. Read it together. Discuss it together. Find flaws in it. Write to me and say, this is flawed. You were going too easy on people. The way you handled the cannibal zombies, that was completely unrealistic. Okay, fine. Give me feedback. Engage. Do it now. The world's on fire. Did you notice? I did. Subscribe, like the video, share the video, get the video out there. Get it out there and say, hey, I sent you that link. Did you watch that video? They scare the piss out of you? Yeah, it scared the piss out of me. I got to the end and I was like, I wanted you to be the same thing. Now I want to talk to you. What do you think about that? Is he crazy? You saw the end. He even said, go into the comments and tell me if I'm crazy. What exactly about this is crazy? What miracle are you looking for? You're expecting some mythical person, some Einstein that you don't even know whose name that is or where they are. They're going to somehow come up with the miracle that's going to save you. Leave me something in the comments, okay? What miracle you think, and who's going to do that for you? For you. I'd like to know. We got work to do, people. Oh, we've got work to do. And the biggest work we have to do now is learn how to survive without fossil fuels. Oh, that's going to be hard. That's going to leave a mark. 99% of people won't be able to figure that out. There you go. 99% of people won't figure that puzzle out. But that's the work. Okay? That is the work. We got work to do. That's the work I have work to do outside. So I am going to leave you here with all that bad news. Watch the video again. Share it with your friends. Like and subscribe. And I'll be back when I don't have so much to do. In the meantime, and against the day when we go over the Seneca Cliff together singing Kumbaya, don't die.